In the darkest days of the Third Reich, the most terrifying sound was a knock on the door. Everyone who lived under the Nazi yoke was in fear of a secret organization, one that Hitler called his deadliest weapon. Without it, Hitler's ambitions could never have been realized. As an instrument of state terror, it's rarely been equaled. Yet until now, its full story has not been told. It was called the Gestapo. The Gestapo was an organization of contradictions. It appeared to be all-knowing, yet its intelligence success was limited. Its public figureheads were among the most familiar of the ruthless and ambitious Nazi leaders. But the real architect of its success shunned the limelight. Even during the height of its terror, few recognized the sinister genius who guided the Gestapo. And although its name has exerted a sinister fascination for more than half a century, the Gestapo's workings have remained shadowy. But there is evidence. Inside testimony from the very center of the Gestapo machine. Double agents and resistance spies add their voices to those of the regime's victims. Many are now dead, but their words, recorded in diaries and journals and dramatized here, live on.
I penetrated the Gestapo as an unpaid part-time assistant to Lieutenant Franz Bühler, Gestapo officer in charge of espionage and arrests, himself a British agent. And from then on, I had to live with the ever-present fear of being found out and subjected to the frightful tortures and death reserved for secret agents caught by the Gestapo.
Gestapo. The word itself has a special resonance around the world. But how much blood, how much misery, how much sorrow, but above all, how much cruelty is bound up with it.
The Gestapo have left us another witness, their own meticulous bureaucracy. In repositories left over from the former Reich, thousands of Gestapo files detail the lives of those who came into their hands. Most of the Gestapo's victims did not survive, but some are still alive. Milo Dor was arrested by the Gestapo in 1942 when he was 19. He was interrogated and tortured to the point of death. All of this is recorded matter-of-factly in his file.
Gestapo 4C.
Gestapo 4C, Roman number 4C, due to subversive activity. My God.
Is this the first time you've seen your picture?
It's the first time I've seen the original. It makes me very sad to see all this. It reminds me of that terrible time.
The name Gestapo epitomizes the horror of the Nazi secret police, although the Gestapo was only one of a network of equally ruthless Nazi security agencies. Its image is of a flawless, coldly efficient machine. By reputation, its network of officers spread everywhere. Yet it was a small organization. In 1941, there were only 8,000 officers, overseeing more than 70 million people. The archetypical Gestapo officer is a sinister figure in a black leather coat. But in fact, most of the Gestapo's staff were faceless bureaucrats. How then did the Gestapo exert such total control over the actions of such a large, ever-increasing population, and perhaps more importantly, over their imaginations? The answers lie in the complex history of Hitler's governance of the Third Reich. For the Gestapo did not come into being fully fledged. Its growth was gradual, its progress dictated by the ambitions and rivalries of its early creators. Yet through all its stages, it was driven by a simple aim: total social control. Its roots lay in the unrest of the years following the First World War. Germany, humiliated by the Allies, stripped of its power, and forced to pay huge sums in reparations, faced anarchy and ruin. A rudderless government watched fascists and communists fight on the streets as local Prussian police struggled to keep control. Into the chaos came Adolf Hitler, promising order, safety, and self-respect, a new dawn. With relief, Germany accepted his offer. The Nazi Party triumphed at the ballot box, and in January 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor.
Well, the German people's response to the political agitation and street violence was one of extreme disquiet, naturally enough. They were fed up with these incessant brawls between the Nazis and their opponents, the communists, the Social Democrats. And I think it's true to say that the German people looked towards a party or a government that would bring order to the streets. And ironically enough, of course, the party that said they could do this were the Nazis.
Hitler lost no time in securing his position. The people had voted for security. What they got was enforcement. Hitler's ambitions demanded absolute power, but this was not yet within his grasp. To achieve it, he had to suppress a still active opposition. His first tools were crude but effective, the SA, or stormtroopers. Under their thuggish leader, Ernst Röhm, the SA had been Hitler's most loyal supporter during his rise to power. With their paramilitary uniforms and arbitrary violence, they were at home in the unrest that had brought Hitler into office. Hans Bernd Gisevius was a young Prussian lawyer at the time. Later, he would go on to plot from inside the Nazi regime to assassinate Hitler.
Without really thinking it through, the party appointed the SA as an auxiliary police force. For 15 months, Hitler let them run things. It was only natural they should feel they were the real victors. Before long, they were leaving the real policemen behind at headquarters, and they roamed the streets alone in search of enemies of the state.
With Hitler's blessing, the SA now owned the streets of Germany. They adopted a zero-tolerance policy, and its rules were clear. The SA's word, even its merest whim, was law. Anything, even failing to salute them correctly, was enough to result in arrest. Hitler's message was simple. In the new Germany, opposition was useless. It was crude and shocking, but it was effective. And its uncompromising stance was the foundation for what was to come. Hitler had already taken control of the newspapers. They were running repeated scare stories about the Marxist threat, uncovering alleged plots and fomenting fear. The SA took this as permission to target any organization.
That was an experience. It was a really significant experience for me. All of us children, we were in the Falcons Youth House. That's what we were called, the Socialist Falcons. And we were attacked on the games afternoon by the SA and the Hitler Youth. We were just children, but we were chased out, and the grown-up helpers were beaten up, wretchedly beaten up.
Within 4 weeks of Hitler coming to power, the Reichstag, the national parliament and symbol of democracy, was ablaze. Amid the outrage, Hitler blamed the communists, calling them a murderous plague, and claiming that God had ordained that they be beaten down with an iron fist. Many have suggested that it was the SA, in a plan inspired by Hitler himself, who were the real instigators of the fire. Whatever the truth of it, this emotive event was very opportune for Hitler. It enabled him to demand a state of emergency, declared next day by the ailing German president, Paul von Hindenburg. Civil rights were suspended, and the German people lost their last protection. It had taken only weeks for Hitler to achieve the crucial move that was to make the Gestapo possible. Anyone could be arrested at any time and held indefinitely. The SA had played a pivotal role, but it was too blunt an instrument for what Hitler now had in mind. He needed something much more refined, and within the coming months, he would find the way to create it.